You are listening to the Spiritual Warrior Coach with Barbara Savin, the podcast for discovering how powerful your wisdom, compassion, and courage is. Get ready to join Barbara and her guests as they explore and offer you advice on how to reclaim your power, your energy, and your authentic self. And now, here's the host of the show, Barbara Savin.
Well, thank you for joining me today, and welcome to the Spiritual Warrior Coach podcast. I am your host, Barbara Savin, and I am here to help you reclaim your power, your energy, and your authentic self. I am a certified clinical and medical hypnotherapist, Reiki master and teacher, energy healing specialist, life coach, and best-selling author of Gentle Energy Touch, the Beginner's Guide to Hands-On Healing. You know, I have been helping my clients for over 35 years, and the older I get, the more wisdom seems to come through. So isn't it time that you believe in yourself? You know, your mind is going to provide you with your greatest challenges in life because it's so very, very powerful. So let's use it for positive thinking, creating harmony, balance, peace, love, happiness, and anything else that your heart desires, because one day the world will tap you on your shoulder and say, this is your time to shine. And speaking about shining, I am going to bring on my shining guest. How are you, Elizabeth?
I'm good, Barbara. Great to be here.
Well, let me introduce you to my listeners, Elizabeth Prather. She is a mindfulness consultant and mentor who works in the areas of stress and burnout with high-achieving leaders. She brings together ancient wisdom, neuroscience, and positive psychology to help clients find focus, calm, joy, purpose, and resilience. And in order to just not to survive, but to thrive in our modern world. And Elizabeth has 20 years of corporate leadership experience, including she was a vice president in a healthcare management company. And this is what I really want to talk to you about. So welcome. You know, I'm so happy to have you here today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here, Barbara. Thanks.
So yeah, so you were a vice president for so many years, and then you switched courses, and now you're into mindfulness and mentorship. Wow, what happened there that all this happened?
Well, Barbara, we have to go back even a little bit further than the vice president role, as many corporate executives probably know, right? So, you know, I started out as pretty much of a type A individual. Even when I was very young, I wanted to be successful. It just felt like the right thing to do, to be. It's who I was. So I worked my way up through the ranks, and I always thought that I would find this happiness. You know, but eventually I'd find it all. You know, I'd have the great job and the great relationship and the great this and the great that. And as I continued up that corporate path, that wasn't happening. All I was doing was getting more burnt out. You know, I had some good relationships during those times, but it was kind of a wake-up call to just an understanding that where does happiness really come from? So when I was about the level of director, I was burnt out. I had gone from managing 3 people to 100 people almost overnight. And I found meditation. A friend of mine introduced it to me. And, you know, back then we were in the closet because this was a while ago, right? So it's not like a lot of people knew about it. And I did find that it was helping me. It was helping me with the stress and the overwhelm, my emotions and so on. But then when I got promoted to vice president, when I started making the really good money, I began to realize that this was just the wrong job, and I was having the wrong goals. You know, the goals were just completely off, and I had lost myself in the job is what I really had found out. And so people had told me about these meditation retreats and trainings and stuff you could do in India and Nepal. So I took a backpack and I said, okay, I'm going to go on a sabbatical and check this stuff out, you know, a little more deeply. So I went to India and Nepal, and the short story is I spent about 4 years. At first it was vacation. You know, I hiked in the Himalayas. I laid on the beaches of Thailand. You know, I did all of it. But I actually embarked on a 10-day, I'll never forget this. It was in Nepal. It was a 10-day meditation retreat that really changed my life. It was kind of a switch that went off. It was like I finally went a little deeper into my mind and realized that there was something that I was really missing. And so I went and basically spent years in India, Nepal, doing meditation training, listening to wisdom teachings, doing retreats, some very short, some a little longer, a couple of months. And then when I needed to find a job, I wanted to do something that I loved, and I love to travel. So I met a woman in India. It's actually a funny story. She was, we were in the Bodh Gaya, which is where the Buddha got enlightened. And we're at this little retreat center. And I say to this woman, what do you do for a living? She says, I'm a tour director. I'm like, a tour director. Well, what do you do? She goes, well, I take people on holidays. And I'm like, that's my next job. So she ended up getting me a interview with her company. And it's called Tauk. And I worked for them for many, many years, and primarily spent time in Europe and in Asia, in India and Nepal. But it really helped me also. I didn't have to work all the time. So I was able to continue my spiritual journey. And what I then did was, in my kind of, people would call it the intense person that Elizabeth can be, is I did a 3-year silent meditation retreat from 2010 to 2012. Wow. And this was in the high desert of Arizona. So at the retreat center of one of my teachers, my main teacher, His Eminence Garchen Rinpoche. And so this was, even within my tradition, 3-year retreat is like doing a marathon. It's not something that everybody does, but it was my path. And of course, the most amazing experience we can talk about later if you'd like, but it really helped me to understand that when I came out of that, interestingly enough, I wanted to share this information with other people who are in mainstream society, working at difficult jobs like I had been. So it was kind of a little bit of a longer journey. And so then since 2013, I've been working both with individuals, but I also do work in organizations, bringing mindfulness into companies.
Wow, that's some story. How did you manage a 3-year quiet? Were you silent for 3 years? I have to ask you that.
Yeah, I know, pretty much. Well, it was a setting where there were 5 of us, and we were in solo retreats. We had 2 kitchens, and then we shared kitchens off time. So when I was in the kitchen, nobody else was, and so on. We had other people buying our supplies. So we didn't have to talk to anybody normally, but every a couple of months, at one point it was almost a year though, we were able to get together as a small group, and basically from like 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. we could talk. So for all intents and purposes, yeah, there was no internet, no reading other than things that were related to the practices that you were doing. It was a very strict Tibetan Buddhist 3-month, 3-day silent meditation retreat.
Wow, that takes you have to be courageous to do something like that. Focus.
Yeah, that's what people say. Yeah, or, as my family, I don't know if my family would quite say it this harshly, but I will say that when I told my family, my mother and my siblings, what I was going to do, their jaws dropped, and they said, how are you going to stop talking for like 2 minutes? It's like much less 3 years. And, I built up to that. And it was kind of, I had some intuition, some very deep intuitive hits during meditation retreats throughout the years that I was going to do this. And I never, even during those intuitive hits, I said, there's no way. It's like, no, I have to work. I have to take care of myself. How am I going to take 3 years off? I mean, come on, that's not going to happen. So, and then when it did happen, it was just, it flowed. I got a scholarship. The retreat was starting like 6 months from when I had that realization. It just was one of those things. So, sometimes our intuitive hits, come and we don't know what they are. And then sometimes it takes a while for it to manifest. And that's really how it happened for me. And thank you for calling it courageous. It was definitely the hardest thing I ever did, and the most incredible thing I ever did from a transformational perspective.
For myself, I don't think I'm able to do that.
Most people say that. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't tell anybody to do it unless it flowed like it did for me.
I mean, I could see maybe a day or two, you know, but then that urge to speak would come out. Yeah, that's a tough one. But so all this now led you in the area that you're doing now, because you mentor like large corporations and you help them with mindfulness and stress.
Yeah, and I really love working with individuals, to be honest, and most of my individual clienteles are women, but I actually have a couple of men right now too. And they're usually in the C-suite or in upper management, and they're burnt out, or they're getting towards burnout. They know they're getting burnt out and they know they need some help. And, kind of where my magic seems to come in is to help people to be accountable, to develop a meditation practice, and then to be able to integrate, micro tips, mental strategies, deep mental strategies, in addition to just these small tips, in order to be able to cope with, everything from how to work more mindfully, but then how to live one's life more mindfully, which ultimately is more important. It's this finding the work-life balance that seems to be eluding most people these days. Yeah.
So do you feel that by doing that, it gives them more confidence and more focus, and they're able to actually most likely do their jobs better?
Exactly. I think, what meditation does is at a basic level, it helps to develop our awareness. I'll just use that term. So there's this deeper awareness that we all have within us. And from within that awareness is that calm, the focus, the clarity. And the analogy I like to use is, it's the difference between reacting in a situation, just like bing, bing, like a ping pong ball, versus stopping and then responding more appropriately, right? So if it's at work when you're trying to, you've got a difficult decision that you've got to make, and having a tool to be able to stop, clear the stress out of your mind, because as we know from a neuroscience perspective, they've studied the brain, and that's one of the reasons I think mindfulness is so, almost going mainstream these days, is because science has been able to show that, our stress is so constant, and it's a hormone called cortisol that doesn't allow us to think straight. It actually deactivates the parts of the brain, in particular, what's called the prefrontal cortex, which is right behind our forehead. And when that's deactivated, then we can't make right decisions. But with a solid, regular meditation practice, and then I have, tips like one of them is like a mindful pause. They can then, reduce the cortisol levels. The prefrontal cortex can go online. They can make better decisions. And also relationships, it's really important, if we have difficult relationships, to find ways to step away from triggering events. The holidays are coming up, so we've got, triggering events that people are going to have. So I think that there are many ways, but like you were saying, finding focus and calm, and it comes from basically knowing that there's this still place that we can come back to that is ours. And the big one I found, especially with women, in fact, is confidence, is that meditation can really help you develop confidence. And confidence is key for you to say no when it's needed, especially in a corporate environment, for you to stand your ground, even if it's not a no. Confidence is key. And I found with both myself and my clients that you can really develop a lot of confidence with meditation.
Oh yeah, I always tell my clients, no is a complete sentence.
I love that.
Yep, because that's what it is. And don't react right away. Take time to just step away and just focus before the words come out of your mouth. Because once we say, and it could be in anger or whatever it may be, once that happens, you cannot take those words back.
Yeah.
And so it's so important to stay focused. And, again, like what you mentioned, to just pause.
Yeah. The pause is even more than just focusing. The pause is allowing the brain to basically bring back online those neural networks that are going to serve you better. I mean, this is all done behind the scenes in our mind-body continuum, but if you practice meditation on a regular basis, and for those of people who are new to meditation, it's hard to understand. It's kind of one of those things I say, it's like, well, what does chocolate taste like? And you would say, well, it tastes sweet, right? Well, what does sweet taste like? You can't define sweet.
Right.
And meditation is the same. You have to do it to understand, to experience it. It's something that we experience within our mind-body continuum, I'll say again. So, but then what happens is that when you do a regular practice and you do things like what I call a mindful pause on a regular basis, which is if you breathe in for 3 or 4 seconds, whatever it is regularly, and exhale for twice as long. So if you inhale for 3, you exhale for 6, and if you do that 3 times, you're automatically activating what's called the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and relax response. So, and then what happens, it's just going back to your situation, you're in this like moment of being triggered, then you're doing your sitting practice, you've done your mindful pauses, more quickly the mind will slow down and know how to respond and not be triggered. Yeah.
And that's so important because it actually gives us more of a sense of who we truly are.
Yes.
And know that we don't have to react out of anger or frustration. We can step back a little bit and think clearly and then say what we feel.
Yeah. And it gives us a place for, one of the things I always say too is it's really hard to stop the initial moment of anger. What we're really stopping is the nanosecond after that, right? So it's not about that we're going to be angerless beings, and we're never going to have all these emotions. I mean, some people actually live on some of these emotions. Like, how could I don't even know how to not be irritated, right? But what you find is when you stop having those emotions, you actually don't want them anymore, because if you can find that stillness and not be irritated or angry in a situation, your mental happiness just goes up. It increases exponentially almost. So that's what's been fascinating for me over the years, is to just watch how I can control certain situations, and be okay. Maybe I'll get a little irritated or impatient.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, oh, okay, that's what I'm feeling right now. And not owning it. One of the things I do with my clients is to have them step away with saying, I am angry. You say, I feel anger.
Right.
So you're not identifying with the negative state of mind so much, right? The ego is not grasping onto it so much that it becomes your identity, which is really what happens. And I'm thinking of some dysfunctional relationships with clients that I've seen, where it's just so hard to step away from the dysfunction, but it's just, baby step by baby step, just trying to step away from, responding with the trigger that you normally had in the past and finding new ways to be able to work through.
And the I am, those 2 words are very powerful. I tell everyone, you'll feel so much better when you say, I am healthy, I am happy, I am calm, I am peaceful, or whatever the situation is. Whereas I hear a lot of them, I am stupid, I am this. Well, that's bringing who you into your reality, who you are. So we need to delete those words and think more positive, with more self-confidence and self-worth in who we are, and find again that happiness within. And it amazes me how even with some of my clients, the negativity just seeps in there. But then once they learn some tips to clear that and delete that, because I always tell them, just delete those words from your mind, because they really do not serve you purpose in any way. So why are you holding on to something that is destroying you rather than helping you? And
is it with your clients? I just had one the other day. It was a very simple situation where she had she was working at home, and she had to open the front door for someone who was doing some work on the house or something. And she said, I know it was so silly that I did this. I'm like, no, what's silly about taking the time? I felt it was silly for me to do this, or something. And so we worked exactly on what you just said. It's like we have to, be aware of the words that we're using, and then yes, we create the world around us through the thoughts we think, the actions we take, the speech we make.
Exactly. Growing up, my grandma was a healer. And so she would, my name was Babasita. She'd call me Babasita. And she always, it was like it was embedded in my mind. She'd say, Babasita, if you think negative about yourself, take those thoughts, take them out of your head, throw them on the ground, and stomp on them with love and light and healing. And if anyone talks negative about you, know who you are, so that you don't take in those words from that person.
I love that tip. I love it. Throw it out, put it on the ground. Love it.
Yeah, but send it down with love and light and healing, because the negativity needs to work. And I swear to you, to this day, it's still in my head.
Yeah, I have clients come back to me after a couple of years and be like, that one thing that you said, that one little tip. And I think that we can't underestimate, how powerful just simple little actions and thoughts can be. One of the things that I really ask my clients to do is to set an intention for our program, because I've been learning over the last couple of years more in particular, or maybe there's just been more research done on intention versus motivation. So, intention is as a deeper thing. You could be motivated to lose 10 pounds in 2022. But if you are, if your intention is to be a healthier person in 2022, it's going to be more powerful. And so that seems to be kind of helpful to bring the mind, because what we're trying to do is, the mind is, right now, and especially with the technological age that we live in, it has every opportunity to be distracted. My analogy I use is that, we're in this big, huge candy store, and now it's our time to be able to, we have to decide which candy we're going to take or not take, and not stuff our faces anymore. You know what I mean? It's really important. And that's what I, unfortunately, but it's just understandably what we work on a lot is digital detox. It's really understanding how the digital devices and communication tools and being in front of computers, everything from how it affects our brain to the electromagnetic radiation that, just doesn't seem to be taken into account, in any way, shape, or form, within kind of like normal work contexts. Understanding how to use that communication tools, the big ones are like Slack and these things that keep you on all of the time. So, I've had companies change things like, they'll have a mindful pause before every meeting. They switch up their Slack requirements. They allow people to get off notifications. People can say, I'm not available after 6 o'clock. They can set times for when they will check their, emails or any of those other kind of communication tools. I think it's just a lot of these different distractions, as I'll call them. And they're not all bad distractions, it's like you have to do this, you have to do that, but we have to learn to manage our time and not just, work on a project, I'm bored, go check your Facebook feed, come back to the project. The research shows it can take anywhere from 60 seconds to 20 minutes to come back online to be focused when you've gone off task. So it's pretty serious when you, and people don't understand what's wrong. They just think, I'm so stressed, I don't know what to do. And this is where mindfulness and meditation come in really.
I tell them to just stop and take some breaths and be mindful of breathing. I'll tell you a story. When I was 20 years old, I worked at Roosevelt Hospital. I was in the administration office. And a lot of us smoked. We're talking a long time ago. And one day I ran out of cigarettes, and I went outside and I was watching everybody else just smoking. And then what I noticed, it was like a ha-ha moment that went on for me. I noticed everybody was just taking a deep breath and then exhaling. And then lo and behold, the next day, I took two of them aside. I said, could we just do a little experiment? Let's pretend we're smoking. Let's make believe. And let's just breathe in and exhale. And it started really catching on. And I swear to you, Elizabeth, within, I would say maybe 3 weeks time, all of us became non-smokers because we realized that it wasn't the cigarette that was helping us relax. It was being mindful of our breathing. And that's what a lot of people need to really understand.
It can be as simple as that, actually.
Simple.
Yeah.
It's simple.
It's powerful. Yeah, it's a great story and a great example of how powerful the breath can be.
Oh, very powerful. Like, when we get stressed, what happens is we all ultimately stop breathing.
Yes. Yeah. And the other thing, I don't know if you're aware too, is that they call it screen apnea, that when you are looking at a screen, and especially if you're focusing, really intently, whether it's on in a meeting or on a paper you're writing, a report you're doing, your shoulders come inward, they constrict your lungs, and you stop breathing. We do it on a regular basis now. So one of the other very simple micro tips is literally just every 15 minutes, check your posture. I bring my shoulders back.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And you and I are just both doing it right now. And we can both feel like, wow, we're getting this extra breath in there,
I could feel it.
Isn't it amazing?
Because I myself was doing like this and just sitting back just slightly. Yeah, it's like a deep breath. It goes all the way in here.
And if you don't, and that's really, really simple but powerful. And there's like a whole group of people who are kind of working on the understanding of, how we have to design workplaces for work-life balance. And it includes what we can call, screen etiquette, right? We have to learn that this is happening. And then, so right now, I think, these days I don't have to put a timer on anymore, but I just noticed that, like every little while, my body will just, shoulders will roll back. I'll take a deep breath, just like you were saying, and then come back to center. And sometimes I'll be like, wow, that really felt good. And then I'll go back to what I was doing. But, it's amazing how powerful the breath can be.
Oh, it is. And just the one thing of just remembering to put your shoulders back.
Right.
And that's what I feel a lot of people are missing out on, just being mindful of just so, I tell everyone, just go outside and look at the trees, just listen to the birds, or just maybe here, if you live like where you live up in the mountains, like, so listen to the silence.
Yes.
It is unbelievable. When I go to my daughter's house, I love it there because I can go in the front and it's silent.
Yes.
I mean, it's silent.
Yes.
And it is an amazing feeling to have the brain not hear any outside interference.
Yeah. And so many of us don't have that opportunity. And, so it's kind of, I work with a lot of people who live in urban environments. And so it's kind of like this mix, I absolutely work with nature suggestions. Like I'm like a nature geek, hike all the time. Actually, we're doing going up into the mountains in a couple of days to get some hiking in. We don't have snow in Southern California, so hopefully there's gonna be a little bit of snow. Sorry for you East Coasters, people who are like trying to get out of the snow.
I know.
But we all have that place where there's always an opportunity, whether you bring a plant into your apartment, whether you just step outside on your balcony. A client who just said to me, she lives in New Jersey and she got this big house. She's like, you know what? I never go out on my balcony.
No.
Oh, I'm gonna, and she started doing that. And she said it's like life changing for her workday, where she just goes out just to get that breath of fresh air. It's just it's so necessary. And even more so now, I think what we're finding is that we're spending so much time outside of nature in the world that we've created that we need to get out into nature in whatever way is possible. And of course, the suggestion if you can get out and take walks every day, even if it's around the neighborhood, even if you're just passing one tree, touch the tree, say hi, do whatever you need to.
You believe in hugging trees, then I
absolutely sure,
because I do too. And some people in the park, they just look at me and say, "What is that lady doing?"
I know.
But trees, I mean, intuitively, and you just know which one to go to. they actually, there's a loving, incredible feeling from them.
Yeah.
If you,
I've got one in my backyard. It's probably about, it's about the size of, oh God, I'm really bad at sizes, but let's say it's like 2 feet in diameter. You know, it's big trunk.
Big.
It's like my buddy.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't need to be watered by me. It's been like, you know, it's way up. There's this huge pine tree, huge pine tree. It's got to be 30 feet tall. But somehow it's like, I have to go and I have to touch it and say hi and I have to water it, even though the other guys around it probably need more watering. It's so funny. Yeah. Like you were saying, you have this relationship with certain trees, but I make sure the other ones get watered too. But I really have been feeling that more recently about this tree and wondering what my relationship is with it, you know, like, oh, I wonder, you know, kind of really what that's all about. But
I think they give us messages.
Yeah.
You know, just like we hear message, you know, I call them voiceless voices that speak to us, that we don't necessarily understand what they're saying, because sometimes it's a high buzz sound or frequency, but then we realize that we know something without learning or just knowing. We just know. And
I'm gonna tap more into that, and just, yeah, like you're, you know, just kind of reach out and just be like, hey, what kind of message are you, you know, trying to give me? Any messages? I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel that's what happens in many cases. You know, I every now and then this hawk visits me, and all the time, and I'm not afraid of him. He always flies over my head and his wings touch my hair.
Really?
And then he'll sit on the either one of my chairs or the fence, and he just stares at me. And I stare back at him, and I know, you know, which I mean, I know it probably sounds a little strange, but intuitively and psychically, I could feel he's giving me a message.
It's beautiful.
And it's a beautiful feeling. It's unexplainable. And I see him, he comes at least once a week.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, he's a gray hawk, big. His wings are huge, but and I'm not afraid of him. I know what the routine is now.
Yeah, yeah. And it sounds like you have a backyard or somewhere where you can really enjoy being outside like that, and and really having that communion with him or her.
Yeah. I don't know, whatever, but it's a special feeling. You know, because a lot of the animals have, you know, spiritual meanings also. But so let me ask you, you know, getting back to your meditation, I know you have a program that's called an inner game of life beyond stress.
Yes.
That sounds very interesting. What exactly is that?
Yeah, you know, what I try and do with the inner game of life beyond stress is it can be anywhere from, usually it's 2 to 3 months. I like to at least, you know, have my clients give me enough time to help them develop the habit of meditation. But to be honest, the most important thing, it's really, I call it the 5 R's of transformation. And so what we're doing through this process is, yes, you know, committing to doing, you know, 5 or 10 minutes of meditation a day. And then I teach various different types of meditation, in addition to the mindfulness meditation on the breath, which I find is a very important, basic, you know, fundamental type of meditation that is extremely helpful at all different levels of practice. So I like to, but then within my own Tibetan Buddhist tradition, there are many other kinds of meditations, like guided meditations, visualizations, and so on. And so the 5 R's, or the first one is relax. I mean, I think we can both, I mean, we have such a hard time in our society about relaxing. And I'll have to say, when people ask what are the benefits of my 3-year retreat, I learned how to relax.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I didn't know how to relax. I mean, I knew I wasn't very relaxed, but I had no idea how not relaxed I really was. So relaxation is really important. And funnily enough, you know, well, not funnily enough, we have to start with that. And the second is release. So what we're trying to do is release limiting beliefs, difficulties, traumas, triggers, and all that, and then restore. So what do we want to restore? It depends on the person, right? You might want that confidence, right? You need that, you want some balance, more balance in your life. You know, it's very personal approach to, you know, integrating, understanding our minds, and then implementing into our life. And then the fourth one is recharge. And so these aren't linear. This is like a circle that we're going through.
Oh, okay.
So we're circling through these things. And so the fourth one is recharging. So what are the things that are going to recharge you? Do you need to get more time out in nature? Do you need to commit to that meditation practice on a more regular basis than you were? Many things come up here. And then finally, we get to renewal, because, transformation is, it's just, we're constantly renewing ourselves. We're constantly getting to a place where we feel renewed. We can step up a notch. Our vibration can step up a notch, wherever we are, but in order to do that, we have to bring things up. It may not be comfortable. It's like we need to bring the mirror up to our face, and we need to really look at it. We need to look at the wrinkles. We need to look at whatever's going on there, right? And we need to see them, be aware, and decide if it's time to let them go. So a big thing for me is this understanding of being versus doing, letting go instead of being on all the time. What do we need to let go of? It can be an emotion, a type of emotion. It can be, a relationship. It can be, small or large, all of those things. So, and then also, I have clients who just continue with me on a regular basis. So we just, we either get together weekly or monthly. So that particular program, I've thought about, I've done a group program too. I'm not doing one right now with a group of women. So if people are interested in that, as they can stay in contact with me via my email and get updates on that. Just had a really powerful one finish a few months ago with a group of I like them small, just a small group of women, and they get a lot from what they talk to each other about. So group programs can be very helpful for that. And then in businesses, it's more what the company needs.
Right.
So if, a business wants to bring me in, it's really, I listen to what they are needing. Are we talking just about reducing stress? To be honest, I am not about just lunch and learns. I'm about changing the ROI for companies, the return on investment. I am looking at how can mindfulness help your business and your relationships with your employees, and ultimately it comes down to individual mental health. This is really what we're about. And I was reading more recently, just, some of the horrible statistics about the mental health status of not just the United States, but the world now.
The world. Oh yeah. The pandemic did a lot of people in, I'm sure, you're aware of it, all the anxieties and fears, and, people are afraid to even just to go out. I mean, I say, just live your life and truly live it without being fearful, because fear takes away your life.
Yeah, that's a big part of my program too. It's so much what I do. And what I teach is about letting go of fear. Yeah. And all of us are at some level of fear. I just was out today at a restaurant, and the kids got out early, I guess, for lunch. And the restaurant was just chock full of all of these kids from age 12 to 17 being like, on top of each other's faces, much less giving you 6 inches of space. And I found I'm really pretty easygoing about it all, to be honest. In, kind of my own personal taking responsibility, like you're saying, letting go of the fear, being responsible, but letting go of the fear. I'm working on that on a daily basis. But I found my twinges, right? I was like, this kid like sat almost right on top of me, like I was sitting, and he just was like, and he didn't know, I'm like, God, in the old days, I wouldn't have said, and I didn't say anything, I'm like, it's okay. Just, I noticed my trigger, right? That was my trigger, became mindful of it, and just be like, just let it go. It's not like, it's going to make a big difference. If I get COVID, then I get COVID, right? I'm taking the precautions that I am willing to take. And then when that happens, then I work within that. So this is about, where some people get confused about mindfulness, because mindfulness is about being in the present moment,
right?
Letting go of the past, letting go of the future, so that we can be fully in our lives. That doesn't mean we don't think about the past. It doesn't mean we don't think about the future. But this is what people will say. It's like, how can I be mindful? I've got to think about that. I've got to decide on that. I've got to do this, right? I've got to do that. It's like, it's finding that balance and understanding of when we're present in the moment, then we can make, clearer decisions about how we want to react. And in that situation, if you're in a room full of people, and I know someone who just went to a wedding, right? Who are not socially distancing, you just take yourself out of that space. If you want to be socially distanced, you find someone who is going to have a conversation with you 6 feet apart. So it's really, it is a challenging time in the world to be. But I don't know if you've been finding this, but I'm finding that with any kind of suffering, it makes people more aware of like what they don't want and what they want. So I'm finding that, the people who are maybe in the closet, in their own minds, even about like wanting out of this job or wanting out of this relationship or just wanting to feel happy, just needing to feel some joy, like not knowing what the word joy means, right? They've reached that point. Now they're willing to embark on their personal development, or in our context, their spiritual journey at some level, and spirituality is not religion, right? Spirituality is deeper than that. So.
Well, that's why I tell everyone, what I do, energy healing, and it's not a religion. It's about calling in, whether you call it God, Buddha, whatever energy. I usually say God because that's what my grandma was the healer. So she always say, calling for God's energy and your angels and archangels, your spirit guides, your loved ones, everyone who's of the light. So, but I tell my clients all the time, it's not religion. There's no religion associated with it.
Yeah. And it's something we're all learning, and there's different ways of talking about God and universe and respecting different belief systems. But what I found is I had grown up Catholic. I actually went to Catholic schools all the way through high school. I went to an all-girls Catholic prep school. And then when I was trying to think, in college, just really, didn't think about it too much, just was trying to I went to UC Berkeley, just trying to get through, I actually wanted to be a doctor. That's what I thought I was going to do with my life for a very long time, since I was a little girl. And so when I switched that, and I actually then went into the business end of healthcare, because my vice president role was in a mental health managed care company. And my direct clients, the people that I worked with on a regular basis, were psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, hospitals, treatment centers, and all of those kinds of things. So I was kind of in that world of like what they did, but not, in the healing arts end of it. And then when traveling to Asia, not wanting to commit to any particular view, I realized that, within the Buddhist view, it's all about non-proselytizing and just understanding our mind. It's like, the quote that's always used from the Buddha is, it's like, you're trying to, it's like alchemy, of like just understanding the mind and, wanting to get to the gold. But what the gold is actually, your complete understanding of reality and understanding that deep love and compassion are at the basic core of our being. And simply put, right? It's all about love and compassion. And so for me, it was, coming into the Buddhist thought actually from a scientific and philosophical standpoint. So I studied Buddhist philosophy for many years because that's how, and then I became more interested in the deeper spiritual practices. And so for a long time, and this might resonate for some, I wouldn't call myself a Buddhist because I didn't want that association. And I think some of that came from the Catholic stuff, it's like, and then, when I, began to announce years and years ago now, that I was Buddhist, there was a relief in that. For me, it's the framework from which I've been able to understand my mind and from which I can offer service, because it can. There are many people in India, Nepal, from Israel. The Jewish people really, really embrace Buddhism. And so I met people from all different religions and listened to their questions of these teachers. And there is always, a spiritual answer that can be found in so many ways. And so, we're all just trying to reach that higher place of, love, compassion, and service and happiness.
That's ultimately what our life should be about.
Yeah.
And not about all this crazy making other things that come at us.
Yeah.
And
It's about focusing inward instead of
Mhm.
outward. And then that all becomes clear. If that,
Yeah.
like, if you're, so many of us are still in the, like, this relationship is what's going to make me happy. This job is what's going to make me happy. Right. It's understanding that when you flip the focus inward, you find all of those things that you were searching for outward, but they look different.
Right.
And it's just a beautiful path that I'm so blessed to have had that burnout. I'll be honest, it's like, if I always wonder, like, what would have happened if I hadn't burnt out and went traveling to India, Nepal, and just, immersed myself in what I did. And we all have different paths, and, that one's pretty extreme in its own way, but you don't even have to do that. Like I say with all of my clients, you just have to go inward and find what's right for you,
Well,
and
I always say
comes.
everything that we need is truly within us.
Yes.
We just have to reach inside and, find it.
Yeah. And that's where we come in. Right. And that's what, I hopefully am helping my clients with is finding those, the practices like the meditation, and then the tools and techniques that can help them.
Yeah, it's the same thing for me. I had the burnout with 500 employees and working so many hours, and in my heart I knew I was a healer, and I finally got the courage, I want to say, to leave that job and to then practice what my authentic self, I want to say. And everyone around me thought I actually had a nervous breakdown, but I said, for the first time in my life, I actually found myself. And I feel, and again, the being mindful, and this is going back, in my 40s, and I'm 73 now. So this is quite a while ago, when people would think it was, woo-woo and voodoo and all this. But I decided to just stay true to me.
And like you're saying, it takes, there's a courage that's needed to do that. But like you found, it wasn't like you were like, okay, now I'm going to wait, the courage is going to come and then I'll do it. You just live your life with the, trying to find those intentions, seeing where, the blocks are. And for you, it's like somehow it's like all of a sudden that switch flipped. And you're like, I can't do that anymore. And this is what I'm meant to be here for. And that's another thing that I love to work with clients on is purpose and meaning and transitions, from one thing to another, really finding themselves. I love to work with people on that.
Oh yeah. And then all of a sudden they realize what they're doing is not really what they want to do.
Yep.
And I always say, just find what makes you happy.
Yeah.
Just, it's, like the work I do, it's not a job. When I worked over at the Four Seasons, and I worked quite many hours, and so quite many various people from all different corporations and helped them. Yeah, it was a lot of hours, but I loved my work. So it wasn't a job to me. It was my purpose, my passion.
Yeah.
And it made it completely different, a different feeling.
Yeah. And I wish that for everyone to be able to find that place. And sometimes we have to do work that, right now that may not seem that way, but as long as, we're not in toxic environments, continue the intention and the wish to get, to find that purpose and meaning. I think that, people get a little, I guess maybe frustrated or, hopeless about it sometimes.
Hopeless.
Yeah. And it's all about timing, and we don't know the timing. That's, one of the mysteries of the universe.
I always call it when spiritual timing, when the spiritual timing is right, believe me, it's going to happen for you.
Exactly. And that was with my 3-year retreat. It's like first when one teacher told me I was going to do this 3-year retreat, I'm like, you're joking, right? And then, it's like, oh yeah, well, maybe no, I could never do that. And then it just flowed, some of these transition times and even, working now. When I do my, my sessions, it's just fun, and I just, there is a beautiful quote that I love, that is about joy. It says, I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw life is service. I acted and behold, service is joy. It's like finding the joy in service.
Yes.
And I think, so many, and service can be anything, right? And especially, helping in social service settings, whether you volunteer here or there, or you give money here or there, all these kinds of things can really lead us to that joy that we're looking for.
And that's what life is all about.
Yes.
We were meant to love, be happy, peaceful, and live with joy and everything else. But unfortunately, a lot of people out there make it challenging for themselves because, again, they're not mindful.
Yes. And, they just don't, they don't know. It's like you see what you see, but the reality is there's a lot more than what we see.
Yes.
Going on. And so we have to tap into that and understand it and get guidance if needed, to help us to be able to see deeper.
And I feel as time moves forward, I'm very grateful for now living in this time where people are now actually getting into the meditation, the mindfulness, becoming more aware, becoming more spiritual, getting into healing. And it's just a beautiful thing to see people finally understand that there is something else other than what is here.
Yeah, we are living in a special time that way. Yeah.
I feel it's a spiritual awakening.
Yes.
So, wow, this is wonderful. So where can my listeners get a hold of you and learn all about this program that you have to offer?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So my website's probably the best place. It's theprathergroup.com, ThePrather group.com. And I also am on Facebook with a group called Mindfulness for Professional Women. And you can get into that group, and there's all kinds of resources and meditations and all kinds of things that are going on in there, growing community and really loving that. And I post, and then if you go into my website, you'll get my email address, which is info@theprathergroup.com, and get on my email list. And then I'll continue to send. I always am sending out tidbits, mental strategies, mindful tips.
Yeah, just helping everybody.
Yeah, just helping everybody.
So what's the website again?
Theprathergroup.com.
Okay. Yeah. Well, all that information will be on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. Your bio will be there, and all your information where listeners can get a hold of you, because what you do is very important, and people need this.
Thank you.
They need this. So please check out Elizabeth. She knows what she's talking about, and anyone that can spend 3 years in silence, believe me, you have to check her out.
I look forward to having chats. I do a free 30-minute complimentary call.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. So anybody can get in touch with me, and I'm happy to talk with them. Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, Elizabeth, thank you so much for being on the show today. And, thank you for listening. And again, a big thank you to Elizabeth. Please go on her website and check her out. And, I hope that you heard what you needed to hear today. So again, a big thank you for listening, and visit me at motivateyourlife.net. And please subscribe to this YouTube channel, or on Spotify or iTunes, the Spiritual Warrior Coach Podcast. I have amazing guests, and just like Elizabeth. And believe me, you'll learn a lot, and you'll learn what you need to hear, what you need to hear also. And I also have another YouTube channel called Barbara Savin, and there I have some grounding and sleep and other meditations just for you to listen to. So again, visit me at motivateyourlife.net, and have a beautiful week filled with love and with light. Love, Barbara.